project department there. I graduated in 2006, and then I've been in New Mexico. I was in Florida. I was overseas for 8.5 years working with the Marine Corps in Japan, doing all types of work there with GIS and construction and all that. And now I'm back here basically, and things are going good. And I came. One of the reasons why I came here is because of the opportunity to work on projects like this, being able to work in an enterprise environment and kind of get out of the whole ArcMap world and go into something higher level, basically. So this is, I'm kind of excited to be doing work like this, basically. So it's pretty cool. So, well, I guess I got a short little PowerPoint just so everybody's kind of on the same page before I take a look at the app. So let me share the screen, and we'll get that started. So let me see if can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I want to make sure it's working. Okay, cool. So so it's a methane detection app demonstration. I got a nice little methane picture there. Just give everybody a heads up with that OCD logo and all that. So
hey Gary.
Yes.
We pause for a minute. Andrea, did you have a question before he starts?
Sure.
Got a slip of the wrist. Sorry about that. I saw a hand go up. Oh, she was an accident. Sorry, Gary.
Oh, it's all good.
I interrupt your flow. Go ahead.
That's no problem. So we got the methane detection app, and so the big question is, why are we doing this? Well, there were new mandates, if I can recall, like 2021, a couple of years back, that required all oil and gas operators to capture 98% of their gas by basically the end of the end of 2025. And so this made all these operators essentially have the installation of these methane emission detectors, and on anything that might be emitting, pipeline, tank battery, stuff like that. By the way, a tank battery is what you see right here. It's like these big little stock things. So I haven't been out there yet, but that's what they are. And they want anything above 50 MCF. They're liable for fines if they don't report it, basically. And it's a form. It's called the C129. So that's kind of what an operator has to file if it's over a certain threshold, basically. So that's kind of how that works. And then so the reason why we need to look at these methane detection satellites is because if in the past we kind of relied mostly on the operators, you just tell us what's going on via a C129 and go from there. Well, we want to have independent verification, because there's been questions of accountability and things like that, and so we want to have independent feeds from different organizations that are very reputable, just to compare things, make sure things are going okay. So and we also want to have a number of reliable sensors, because they all don't always get the same particular emission at the same time. So it's almost like a Gantt chart, basically. You want to compare them, essentially. So that's kind of what we want to do. That this is kind of the idea. So the current satellite feeds we're using is the first one I'm using more than the second one. It's CarbonMapper, and we've had a relationship with them for a little bit. The OCD staff was talking to them. They've been using the data for a bit, and that is the reason why we decided to coordinate with them. And what's great is they're very easy to work with. I had a few questions for them because their website can be sometimes a little cumbersome because it's fairly new, and I didn't realize this, but they don't do a lot of Esri products per se. For example, when I was working with them at a meeting, they never used our enterprise environment before. They never worked with any state regulators either. So they were kind of excited to work with us because this is a good opportunity for them and it's good for us. So and they're basically a nonprofit. I get the vibe it's a lot of California, maybe Silicon Valley money, stuff like that, but I'm not in, and they partner with the NASA JPL to find plumes as well. And, it's pretty good. And then of course, we get on, the staff also said they're using the IMEO, the International Methane Emissions Observatory, which is basically it's part of the environmental program for the United Nations. And so that's what we're using right now for both of them. And so this is kind of the flow that I've been doing right now. And in a nutshell is the CarbonMapper one's a little more involved. Basically, we have a Python script that basically produces a JSON, essentially. CM is CarbonMapper, if anybody's curious. But and so that gives us like a bounding box, you know, for the New Mexico extents. We got that refined, and then you know, make sure it's methane, make sure it's oil and gas source, and things like that. So we have all those types of variables at play, and then we basically after loading that JSON, I've been overriding it as to a feature class, and to a hosted feature class on our dev portal right now. So that's what we've been doing, and I've been updating every week because the OCT staff asked for that, and I'll get more into that with what they have in the dashboard in just a couple minutes. And then for the United Nations, they're a little bit more straightforward, which is good and it's not good. So basically, the CSV file, that's basically so when you download methane source, which is a point of where the source is, and a plume, which is an aerial extent of where the plumes are, they're basically separate for the United Nations, essentially. But here's the thing, you can't filter it out before you export the data. So you gotta, you know, so I kind of have to do that inside after I export it, you know, as a hosted feature class or some things like that. So I've been trying to coordinate with the United Nations for some refinements, hopefully on par with what we've been doing with CarbonMapper. So that's kind of what's been going on. So then we turn it into a dashboard. But in addition to the functions of the dashboard, which, you know, which can be limited, there's a few embedded analysis tools I have. One uses the old web map app builder because my clients like that. And then I have one that's kind of an experimentation, which is the experience builder. And we have that on ArcGIS Online because their apps are more up to date than the enterprise. So that's what's going on. And right before I dive in, this is pretty much what it looks like, a general overview is as far as the dashboard goes. And so you got methane instances and you got sources and frequencies. So I'm going to segue over to the app now so people can look at this a little bit more in detail. So basically what's going on is let me switch this over. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes, sir.
Hello? Oh, I just want to make sure.
See your app.
Good, great. Okay, so here's what we got. And so what's nice about this is one thing that should be noted that we do with the CarbonMapper is they're asking for any new Plume instances. We did have one last week, but when I ran the script this week, it's no longer new because that's what the one of the teams in OCD is interested in, basically. And so I kind of have this ordered by with CarbonMapper, I kind of have this ordered by date going down. And it should be noted that this is the original date it was captured, because there's various dates, like the date that it was processed, which might be up to a year afterwards, I've seen in some cases. So it's good just to have the initial date, because if there's a violation to be had, we want to know what the original date is, right? So that's kind of how that works. So so if we go up here, this is the highest one, by the way. By the way, just to give people a ballpark idea, if when you click on this and you check this out, it's 50 MCS is the threshold for reporting. This one was very, very high. And what's kind of let me maximize this a little bit. So, yeah, so we can so basically we go here. This is like the highest violation. And if we want to take a look, one thing that should be noted is, now let's go at the imagery. There's a little facility here. And to be like, if I work for OCD, I'd be like, well, I wonder if there's any facilities that we have documented. And what's really interesting with this particular one is we actually don't have any facilities, which would be that C129 form that are present there. And so basically,
It's
what
cows.
What's that?
It's cows.
Cows? Well, there'd be lots of cows in one place. This is actually, so it doesn't show on this. This is actually El Paso Natural Gas, for example. So they're pretty much, a processing facility. And what's interesting is if you look at the pipelines, there is no pipelines that we had collected that go out to there. So I thought that was quite interesting. It takes a minute sometimes for the pipelines to show up. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on over there. So, and I kind of did this all in Arcade here because I figured these are the prior, if I work for OCD, this is probably what I'll be looking for basically. So we got a concentration, and then we have a confidence interval plus or minus with MCF. So that's kind of how that works. It should be noted that, I had to convert that from a metric value. So I reached out to the SMEs at OCD, and I took that into account basically. Now, one thing you might notice is with, if we zoom out and if we go to the CarbonMapper stuff again, sorry, the CarbonMapper data, where are you? Okay. And that's the facilities. Okay, so first off, I don't know where if we haven't had those pipelines submitted by operators, there's various reasons for that. But basically, if you look at the so let's take a look here. So right here, go on the legend. So these are plumes that we have, and you notice these are sources, I should say. The actual plumes are available. The reason why they don't have them is because CarbonMapper never had a need for it before I talked to them. So we do have access to this data. So let's just zoom in here. So we have 3 different violations here, and let's take a look. And interestingly enough, I don't see any facilities at that particular place. But if you go over here, it's a tank battery, and so there was a violation at some point there, which prompted them to file paperwork. Because remember, we don't do an inventory for all oil and gas facilities. This isn't like the assessor's office where we want to do an inventory for, of all parcels or of all land for tax purposes. Our mission is if there's violations, we have it recorded, and then it just goes in there. So because of that, it's kind of a check. When you look at our facilities, it's kind of in a checkerboard fashion. Maybe some never admitted, maybe some did. That's kind of how that works, basically. And owners aren't always operators. A lot of times they usually lease land out. So there's a lot of factors at play there if you work with OCD and you're trying to figure out what's going on, basically. So obviously there's a whole bunch of stuff going on here. So let's take a look at this. So we got Plume ID here. And so what we could do, and I have it where if they know the ID, they could go in here, and because it's fairly large and basically, let's say we don't want to go down. I mean, we could just copy this over, but we could also go in here and make a like query if we wanted to. Let's just do that. So let's say GAO 2023 0827. So there it is. And it's that one right there. Let's see, 002023 0827. Okay. Let's see. Oh, 827. Okay. Then where is it? Okay, yeah. So it kind of pops up like that at some point. But for the purpose of this, I'll just copy this here. And I have a link to the actual site because what they're going to do is they're going to take a look at it. So this is the actual data site that they go to. And now in the future, we won't have to do this, but right now we have to until it gets updated from CarbonMapper. We'll eventually have a Python script for this. That'll be refined. But here's what it actually looks like for now. If you want to take a look at it and see what happened. Now, these are 3 separate instances essentially, and they're not MCS. They're in kilograms, per per methane per hour essentially. So that's the particular one that we had. As you can see, there was a lot going on those 2 days for this particular one, and so and then basically what the regulators would do is they would go and they'd try to figure out who the operator was and then go from there essentially. I'm not familiar with all the legalities, but that's kind of what they would do. So that's kind of how that works. And of course, we can sort things out by date and concentration and things like that. Now, I was thinking about Heather. She was curious about Carlsbad, so let's take a look at Carlsbad.
Oh, that's a great idea. Heather,
Yeah, I
are
was
you
just
here?
because I
He just
remember.
called you out.
Oh,
Be
well,
sure
she
to
was
pay attention
curious.
if you're doing other things.
Yeah, it's good. I just want to turn this off. And so, yeah, okay. So we're right here. So let's just type in Carlsbad. We'll make sure I get exactly, just to give you an idea. Okay, there's Carlsbad. So as you can see, the pipelines all over the place. We do have a couple violations. It's not as bad as say Hobbs, but there are a few. So if you take a look here, it's a methane source emission, and you can take a look at some of that. And let's take a look. So yeah, that was this February basically. Now here's the thing that I was going to say is we go back. I haven't really gone into too many details with the IMEO stuff. Like I said, this is all still in development. It's not apples to apples sometimes with this stuff. So for example, if you look at they got source emissions, which is pretty straightforward that they can use. The IMEO, they have a source emissions category, but in most cases it's zero, which is why I didn't put it here. And I've been trying to contact them, hopefully that we can get that data so we can do apples to apples. So right now it's kind of in the background, but it was something that OCD wanted that they requested specifically. So I'm like, okay. So, so the flux rate is basically, if you look at an entire methane plume, it's basically, think of it as like the aggregate of it essentially. So that's the best way to see things like that. So here's a big one right here that we have. And let's maximize this so we can see it better. So yeah. So and that's just north of Carlsbad, basically. And this, thankfully, I don't think anybody's living out there. It's just, but the oil wells are being affected possibly. So that's kind of what's going on here. Like I said, this is something we just wanted to get out and just show people because it's, we didn't have this information easily before. OCD used to waste a lot of time trying to go to these individual sites. So that's kind of what's going on here. And so it's very interesting from that perspective. Something else that we're doing is here's that screening tool. So let's say, going back to Carlsbad here, we got an emission here. Let's say we want to just do an analysis tool because with dashboards, you can't really do the screening tool, for example. So I had it embedded so that we can use it because my clients said it was very inconvenient for them to switch over. So I just embedded the tools with them. And so what you can do is, well, actually, what is it? I know it works on the other one, but let's just do a quick buffer analysis. And let's say we want to see anything within the last mile here. So we have 3 facilities here, and they're pretty much right here. And let's see if I have it turned on. Yes, there it is. Yeah, because it's embedded, it's different, so it's not all connected yet. So that's one thing I like about the experience builder. But yeah, so that's what we have here, and then you can download all of these basically if you need to, like it's a CSV or something like that. That's the idea. We also have the pipelines and things like that. So turn that on. There it is. Okay. So, there's quite a bit going on here, and we can always take a look at the imagery as well and just do a cursory look, see what's going on. So it looks like we have an idea who might be violating that, but I don't see any facilities for that. I just see a facility here, which may correlate, but it's violated in the past. At least it's been reported for an associate violation. So a couple of years back, XTO, but Permian. So yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff. And then one thing we also have is it's pretty much the same thing. It's pretty much like the screening tool. It's basically the ArcGIS Online version of it. And the reason why I did that, like I said before, is they got the Near Me tool, which replicates the screening tool, and then we did a query tool. So let's say we want to go here, and let me turn everything on. See facilities and the wells. This came from GIS Online, so things aren't exactly one regarding topology, but I just wanted to show everybody how this works. So if we did a query, and these are queries that you kind of pre-select. So I want to select all the facilities within the wells. You do an intersect on data source. You got 35 of them, and what's kind of nice is if you can just show it on the map, it's highlighted there. And then you can, you can pretty much export this. Let's export this to a CSV because that's what they like to have. Let's get this. Let's see, go through. Yes, it's right here. And so because they use Excel quite a bit for internal analysis, but they pretty much have it here, and it saves them a lot of time essentially. So we can also do the general buffer, which is the Near Me tool. I kind of just have it out here because it may just make it convenient for them. It's just for the time being. Let's say we want to do everything within a mile here. Then you pretty much have it right here. So like I said, there's refinements will be made, but it can be done, and we're using the more up-to-date technology, because at the end of the day, they're going to get rid of the screening tool and all that. We're all as a web app builder, we're all going to have to be using the experience builder if you're using every projects in an enterprise environment at some point. So I figured may as well be ahead of the curve and see what's going on. And actually, going back to what I had in the chat, I was actually asking Jack Dangerman about that. I'm like, hey, what's happening? Because the dashboard, there's only so many things we can do. And he says, basically he says at the user conference, we're going to talk about that. So I was like, that's pretty cool. I get the vibe eventually, we're going to make stuff from Experience Builder and include dashboards. I mean, Amber might know more than me, but that's just what I'm thinking might happen. So, but yeah, that's kind of what's going on here, and it's quite interesting, and I like it because our users, instead of going to the internal websites all the time, or the external instead of going to the external websites all the time, that they're pretty much going here more and more. And the way I deal with it is, with the environmental person that's going to be using at the end, I tell them, call me up, let's have a meeting. What are you frustrated with on this? Because from my experience, if you don't engage the users, they get frustrated and they just won't use it. That's what I've noticed. And so you got to keep having engagement. I mean, I'm a coordinator. That's what I do. So, and it should be noted, like I was saying earlier about if you look at the time, it'd be nice if we had an app where we could have them integrated. But basically, if you juxtapose this, we had 13 instances on the 14th of January that was recorded by the United Nations satellite. And sometimes they cross correlate and sometimes they don't, which is why I kind of had this out here. And it would be kind of cool if we could like click that where it would zoom in, but there's no action buttons with these at the moment, which is okay. It's no big deal. These are in development. So that's why I've been reaching out to Ezra and Jack himself when I registered virtually for the UC conference to say, hey, it'd be nice if we could do all this. And I was very surprised he got back to me. So yeah, so what my question was related to this, because I want to, there's stuff that my user, it's not even what I want, I kind of like it too. It's what my users want. And the more the users want, the more people are going to use it. And it's good for Esri, it's good, or if it's not Esri, it's good for whoever that business would be. So that's kind of what we have going on here. And so yeah, so that's pretty much what we have right now. So just wanted to show everybody that.
I mean, Gary's been doing a great job, and some of this has been just a learning, while doing, dealing with GeoJSON in our enterprise. There's different compatibilities between how GeoJSON behaves in that selector toolbar. Mm-hmm. There's how it pulls into the web apps and the dashboards, and it's not available in the classic. And there's also more capabilities in ArcGIS Online. So we've been actually looking at a few different ways, either bringing in the GeoJSON into ArcGIS Online and then resharing it back into our apps, or, dating, how dates behave with the GeoJSON are a little bit different than, standard feature class. So there's sort of a few gotchas and workarounds that we have in place.
Yes.
But it's been interesting. There's a few others that are coming online. OCD is talking to Methane Sat, part of the, I think, funded through the EDF, that launched their satellites about a year ago, maybe less than a year ago, on sort of their data outputs and how we would like to see it. So there's more to come. But yeah, this has been kind of an interesting project, and for OCD to be able to, see something, tag it, and then send an inspector out to either use like an infrared imaging sensor or thermal cameras or something like that to see what's causing it. But hey, joking aside, we do get sometimes the excuse of, hey, it must be a livestock, instead of a oil and gas. So
yes,
yeah, dairy farm or something. So we, these are becoming more point source focused. So that excuse is becoming harder to justify. So, but yeah, Gary's been doing a great job with this.
Yeah. So like just give everybody here an idea, this is everything from just this year essentially that's going on. And it's just it's very interesting. And how many of these are where people live? Because like what John was saying, I've made a few apps that's talking about that we got from the highest levels in our division, actually in our agency. Because so we're working on that as well, like anything near schools and stuff like that. I mean, that stuff made the news 6 months ago from KOAT, and they were using our products. So it's really interesting. So yeah, I mean, and I think this is something the public would like to see. I mean, I want, because I mean, if I was living out here, I'd like to know when there's a methane app coming out. I mean, all this data is available to the public. It's not like this is secret data or anything like that. So it's just, I mean, and what's nice from our experience is whenever we get something that's publicly available, we usually get a lot of feedback where we didn't have before, because the public is a stakeholder with what we do. It's not just operators or special interest groups. So it's, if it helps fulfill our mission essentially and giving some transparency. So.
And so what is the public version of this app? We got
I don't have one yet.
Yeah.
No, so we're
we
trying
got
to
hidden view.
Oh, no. So yeah, what you're seeing, what this is the internal one. We're still going through some of the kinks. I think CarbonMapper, we made a lot of progress. The only thing we were missing with CarbonMapper is these aerial plumes. With the United Nations, I really would like to have the emissions out there, and then maybe put the flux up there. But I just want to make sure that we got something that's easily digestible to the public, so we're not giving them apples and oranges with units and people get confused. I want to make sure there's a standard. Basically, so like for example, I want to make sure we have source emissions and make sure it's an MCF, and right now this is kind of like what John was saying. This is pretty much in development with users, and once we get a workflow going, I'd like to make this publicly available as I coordinate more with other satellite vendors and current ones, basically. Definitely, I think CarbonMapper will be displayed. I'm pretty sure the United Nations one will be as well. I just want to get source emissions so we can compare different feeds together. And that's that's kind of what the vision is. So I kind of see it, a lot more in the future, like what John was saying, and with the methane sat, once they get their website more easily digestible and they get data since they just launched, it'll be great. CarbonMapper, their stuff is isn't that they're fairly newish for the last couple of years, so they're doing a lot of stuff. So I think it's going to get a lot better. We'll have a lot more granularity as time goes on, and who knows, maybe we'll have to make a data schema to deal with all of this. But right now, we're just kind of just showing feeds, and one of the reasons why I'm doing hosted features as opposed to live is hosted lets you do more analysis functions. Where live, you're sometimes more limited. So there's kind of but you don't want to do. The idea is to have that optimized where you don't do too much maintenance, but you don't want to do, you want to have some oversight with it, but not too much, if you know what I mean, where it takes up all your day. So that's what we're working on. So, yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the time being. Does anybody have any questions?
So would they be an in-between application for an organization like the Hickory Oil and Gas Administration or for FEMO or something like that so that they can look at this?
Yeah, well, I'd like to get it publicly available and then everybody can take a look at it. That's going to be the idea. So I'm hoping, well, I think we've made a lot of progress just in the last month or two, to be honest with you. So I'm hoping in a few more months we'll be able to do that. I definitely want this publicly available. I just got to make sure our leadership is good with it, since I work for them, and then if they're good with it, and why not, let's do it. And I'll definitely go make an announcement and everybody can take a look at it. So like I said, we're just in development now, and I think we've made a lot of strides, and especially the last 2-3 months. So, and just 2-3 months from now, who knows, it may be a lot, I'm hoping it'll be a lot more refined and to the point where everybody can take a look at it. So that's the idea.
And users can go to the source sites, which are active. So they can go to the UNEP.
Yes.
They can go to the CarbonMapper, NASA JPL, EMIT mission. They're putting this stuff out there, and we're just consuming it and then doing some customization for, triggering either alerts or, recent as close to today or real time as possible. That I think some of these might come in a couple weeks after they have actually been reported, because the scientists will be looking at it, reviewing it, doing the process and the parts per million gas estimates before it comes down to their public site. So, but yeah, a lot of the stuff is available publicly right now.
Yes.
Just not through our web maps.
We basically just made an app that essentially just made it very easy initially for our staff to take a look at things. And like we were saying earlier, it'd be nice to have this go public at some point, which I personally think will hopefully happen. So, but yeah, I think we made a lot of progress. I'm looking forward to seeing how this, how this matures, this whole project.
So I'm interested in, like, I know that you sort of mentioned, right, previously this was ad hoc, and basically when a form was submitted and then it was, field research or follow-ups, or I'm not even sure, like, it seems like without this information, you really couldn't have even characterized in any way, like, the actual numeric impacts, right? Unless somebody self-reported it. So
Right.
I'm trying to figure out how do you guys articulate like the return on investment for something like this? Are you doing that for?
We haven't gotten to that point yet, I think, because we're in dev, but I do have people. So I'm working with the special projects team with LCD on this, but I'm starting to coordinate with the environmental team, because once the steward for the environmental team for this gets it and they're good to go, and pretty much that's when we'll get to they're going to start issuing violations. So I think the return on investment will be how many more violations are we going to have that's based on these plumes from before and after. Essentially, that would be the way to characterize too. That's how I would do it personally.
It'll likely become a cross state agency activity, because I'm not even 100% sure on the responsible authorities who actually will file those actions and those fines. You got environmental department, you got other state agencies that kind of have a piece of the pie in this. So I think in the near term, our next steps, aside from trying to uniform, get this data in a uniform method, is to reach out to some of these other agencies and see if we can come up with sort of a joint sort of monitoring prospect.
Yeah,
exactly. Air Quality Bureau and so forth.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's definitely a financial sort of return to the state. And for me, it was just even for your staff, right? For them to get this information filtered down, you've identified the date of the actual incident instead of them having to filter through, website tables. It's like maybe there was one expert in OCD that even knew how to find the information. But I mean, it's just a complete paradigm shift in the way they can think about this stuff, because it's right there at their fingertips. Yeah,
I've always compared doing a lot of work like this to turning the Christmas lights on, if you know what I mean. People see patterns all of a sudden. It's like, oh, look at this. And then, like you said, increased productivity and, it'll be increase in violations ultimately. And I do know, for a while, I know, at least with OCD, that there was a huge decrease in, in the past, and very low, like 95% lower. So maybe they're just getting up to where the old steady state was 20 years ago or something. So that would be a huge increase, and this would definitely facilitate that effort, at least regarding methane plumes and things like that. So
sure.
Yeah, that's what's going on. So I'm looking forward to see what this looks like in a few months. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Sure, no problem.
Any other questions? It's the top of the hour.
Oh.
Lots of accolades coming in the chat.
Oh.
Thank you, EMNRD and OCD, Gary, John.
Sure, it's no problem.
All right. I think that concludes our June meeting. See you back here next second Tuesday.
Yeah, bye. Great
Thank you.
work. I love seeing the app.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.